I've made quite a few videos about different editions of Eurovision, and one theme that I find myself coming back to is change. What stays the same, and what is different from one edition to another? With Eurovision 1996, they made many changes to the contest, which were abandoned within a year. 1998 was a year where lasting changes were made to the contest, but other changes were yet to come. And Eurovision 2001? Come on, they just went to a pub and filmed people doing karaoke. But I would argue that no edition saw such fundamental change to the contest as Eurovision 1999. First, let's start with what stayed the same: the relegation system. The decade was coming to a close, and Eurovision was on its fifth method of limiting the number of participants. Starting in 1997, the countries with the lowest average number of points in previous editions were kicked out each year. The first lot of unfortunates consisted of Slovakia, Romania, Finland, Belgium, and the one and only Macedonia. But the rules also said that no country could be kicked out for more than a year, so these 5 countries made their return in 1998. However, they largely failed to make an impact on the scoreboard, and only Belgium managed to score themselves a spot in 1999, with Greece and Switzerland taking their place on the bench. In the meantime, Denmark, Russia, Austria, Iceland, and Bosnia and Herzegovina were kicked out in 1998 for having the lowest average scores out of the 1997 participants. 2 interesting things about this. 1. Austria was the only one who was actually in the bottom 5 of Eurovision 1997. Norway and Portugal finished with 0 points, but both got to carry on to Eurovision 1998 because of better results in previous editions. Meanwhile, Russia got kicked out after finishing in 15th place with the famous Alla Pugacheva. And this would just be the beginning of the quirks of the average relegation system. Second of all, these 5 countries still had higher averages than the 5 countries that got kicked out in 1997. And this essentially split the bench into an A team and a B team. 1999 was the A team's time to return. Well, except Russia. They had to sit out for another year because they didn't broadcast Eurovision 1998. But the other 4 were determined to do what the B team couldn't, and achieve their redemption. Did they succeed? You'll have to wait and see. Many new things from 1998 also carried over to this year. The vast majority of countries used televote to determine the points, and they also kept on 2 innovations with the scoreboard. The countries would sometimes be rearranged in order of ranking rather than order of performance, and occasionally the voting would show a map of Europe rather than the scoreboard. The latter of these would not carry over to Eurovision 2000. Now let's talk about the changes. First, the backing tracks. Eurovision's history with backing tracks is a headache, but all you need to know is that in 1997, Eurovision changed the rules so the performances could now use a full backing track with no strings attached. This carried over to 1998, but 1999 took things a whole step further. Eurovision 1999 was held at the ICC, no, not that one, and the contest organisers decided that there was no need for an orchestra, meaning every delegation had to use a backing track for their entry. This was the first time Eurovision had done this, and it has remained the same in every contest since. And secondly, for the first time in over 2 decades, countries were no longer restricted to singing in their native languages. This had long been a point of contention among delegations, and during the 1990s, countries have been pushing the limits in how much English they could get away with. In 1993, Croatia's debut Eurovision entry consisted of 56 words in Croatian and 55 words in English, with the singers repeating the lines "Don't ever cry" and "Never say goodbye" over and over. In 1994, there was controversy when Poland's debut representative, Edyta Górniak, sang the final chorus in English during the dress rehearsal, which led to several other countries calling for her disqualification. And in 1997, Norway took things to a whole new level by switching languages mid-sentence, even at the cost of grammatical correctness. With major rule changes and 4 countries determined to redeem themselves, this year was set to be a very different edition than anything that came before. But how much did it impact the performances? Let's find out. What better way to start a contest full of changes than with a brand new language? Lithuania was back in the contest 5 years after their debut in 1994, where they suffered the ultimate humiliation of getting 0 points in their first edition. Even with the option of singing in English, Lithuania opted to send an entry in Samogishin, a native tongue spoken in the west of the country, with a few 100,000 speakers. Is it a dialect? Is it a separate language? Those terms are just politics. Lithuania did a little better than their first attempt, finishing in 20th place with 13 points, but still a pretty poor showing, and Lithuanian participation in 2000 was out of the question. Shortly after the Spice Girls went on hiatus, Melanie C had a brief side hustle as an Enya tribute act. The sole survivor of 1998's ill-fated B Team, Belgium performed second in the running order with a song in English. Belgium was the first country to send a song in a foreign language in over 2 decades, and coincidentally, Belgium was also the last country to send a song in a foreign language in 1977. Belgium finished in 12th place with 38 points, narrowly escaping relegation, which allowed them to rejoin their B Team comrades in Eurovision 2000. And they would all get kicked out together the year after. Next up is Spain. Spain sent 19-year-old Lydia with a low-key Latin ballad. It finished in last place, only receiving a single point from Croatia. Spain's high results in previous editions helped them escape relegation, but maybe it wouldn't have mattered. We'll get to that later. But it's impossible to talk about this entry without talking about the dress, which looked more like a beach towel with a collar and sleeves. It was designed by Agatha Ruiz de la Prada, a famous Spanish fashion designer. Based on her more recent work, she really likes the 1980s kids show aesthetic. Miss Agatha is a member of the Spanish aristocracy, which is a fancy way of saying glorified Nepo baby. And in 2010, she became the Marchioness of Castel dos Rios, following a 4-year lawsuit where she fought to pry the position out of her uncle's hands, and enforced the overturning of Spain's laws that favoured male relatives for titles of nobility. Girl boss. Croatia sent Doris Dragovic, back in the contest after previously representing Yugoslavia in Eurovision 1986, where she finished 11th. Her new entry was a major step up, coming in 4th place, and remains a fan favourite to this day. But the performance ended up causing some controversy when it turned out that the male backing vocals had been pre-recorded on the music track. Live instruments were a big no-no at Eurovision 1999, but live vocals remained a requirement. As punishment, it was decided that a third of Croatia's points for 1999 would be deducted when it came to deciding who would get relegated each year. But Croatia never got relegated anyway, so it didn't really matter. The United Kingdom had long been one of the heavyweights in the Eurovision Song Contest. Between their debut in 1957 and their previous participation in 1998, they had won 5 times, finished second 15 times, and only come outside the top 10 3 times. And that's including 1995, when they tied with Malta for 10th place but got fewer sets of 10. Say It Again by Precious was the beginning of the end of the UK's golden age in the contest. It finished in 12th place, which at the time may have just been written off as a fluke, but since then the UK has only finished inside the top 10 3 times. On 5 occasions they have finished in last place, and every time they learn nothing and blame Brexit. Slovenia sent a returning artist for the first time, Darja Švajger, who first competed in 1995 and finished 7th, which remains Slovenia's joint best position in the contest. She came back 4 years later with another power ballad, this time in the English language. This song struggled to capture the televote, and more than half of its points came from the small number of countries that used jury voting. The final result was a decent 11th place with 50 points, but Slovenia's poor results from 1996 and 1998 came back to bite them in the ass, and they were forced to take a break the following year. The relegation system was cruel, and it would only get worse. Turkey was in a funny position in Eurovision by 1999. After 2 decades of unprecedented failure in the contest, they finally achieved a 3rd place finish in 1997. But Turkey's road to their golden age was a bumpy one. It took a while for them to replicate the success of Dinle, and their safety net was a steady stream of diaspora voting. They finished in 16th place with 21 points. including 12 from Germany for the third year in a row. Stig van Eyck represented Norway. He was born in Colombia, but as a baby he was adopted by a Norwegian family, with an inexplicably Dutch surname. Living My Life Without You highlights another major change in Eurovision over the next 2 years: the increasing frequency of not-so-great vocal performances. In Stig's defense, this may not have been his fault. According to the website VG, Stig's earpiece was turned up way too loud, causing a severe headache and problems with his hearing, and his father even demanded compensation. Despite the dodgy vocals, Norway still scraped together 35 points and finished in 14th. Their usual Nordic neighbours, but also 7 points from Croatia and Cyprus. And other participating countries may have received the message that vocals weren't everything. And this would play out in the next few editions of the contest.
And this time I mean it, oh baby.
Denmark returned to Eurovision after a single point prevented them from participating in Eurovision 1998. Trine Jepsen and Michael Teschel won the Danish national selection with Denne Gang, which was subsequently translated into This Time I Mean It, kicking off 2 decades of Danish language absence at Eurovision. Denmark successfully redeemed their Eurovision career, finishing in 8th place with 71 points, and easily scoring themselves a spot in Eurovision 2000. The song would later feature in Vi melder bien rød, an intriguing and somewhat cursed jukebox musical featuring Danish Eurovision songs and national selection rejects. Much like the UK, France was once one of the star performers of Eurovision, though their record was never quite as spotless, and their decline had a bit more back and forth. The year before, France finished in second last with only 3 points, but having 3 top 10 finishes between 94 and 97 ensured that they stayed another year. After taking a risk that didn't quite pay off, France tried their hand with a conventional female ballad, but playing it safe didn't work out either, and France finished in 19th place with 14 points. Their strong previous results weren't enough to save them from the relegation zone, but they had a backup. Money. There's a common misconception that Germany's failed qualification in 1996 led to the creation of the Big Four, and while I'm sure it was a major factor, it was first written into the rulebook for 1999, with the EBU proposing that, starting in 2000, the 4 biggest financial contributors, France, Germany, Spain, and the UK, would automatically qualify for participation every year. France got to move on to Eurovision 2000, stealing a spot that would have otherwise gone to Slovenia. The Netherlands had had an interesting run in Eurovision throughout the 90s. Some of their entries did very well, some not so good, and there was a significant correlation between failure and melanin deficiency. But that pattern came to an end in 1999 when Marilyn represented her country and finished in 8th place. The chorus, "Give me one good reason, and I will give you 2, raises some logical questions. What if the reason her significant other gives is the same as one of her 2 reasons? Will she come up with a third reason on the spot? Or does she already have a third reason that she knows she probably won't have to use?" With 71 points, this entry further strengthened the Netherlands' place in the contest, overwriting their disastrous 4-point finish from 1994, and safely guaranteeing them a spot in next year's competition. Poland was a country that showed a lot of promise in Eurovision, only for it to quickly fizzle out. They finished in 2nd place on their debut in 1994, but so far had failed to get even another top 10. The runner-up position was the one thing that kept them in the 1999 contest, and they needed another strong finish to make it to Eurovision 2000. But Pszczół mnie mocno by Mietek Szczesniak wasn't going to make it. This rather somber ballad finished in 18th place with 17 points, mostly from juries, and Poland ended up in the relegation zone for the first time. Iceland was back in the contest after getting relegated in 1998. Their 1997 song by Paul Oscar is often seen as an entry that was sent a year too early, gaining most of its points from the nations experimenting with televote. Much like the other members of the A-Team, Iceland was thirsty for redemption. And redemption was what they got. They beat their personal best and finished in 2nd place. All Out of Luck by Selma was a sign of Eurodance finally solidifying its place in Eurovision. The contest took way too long to embrace the genre that was dominating the charts, when a Eurodance song won in 1998. Oh, now you want to be European? Selma would return to the contest in 2005, but failed to qualify for the grand final. Human beings love to predict the future. There's something satisfying about being able to tell everyone, "I told you so." And Eurovision, being a voting competition, is an active breeding ground for that sort of thing. Sometimes Eurovision winners can be spotted from miles away, and sometimes they rise like a phoenix. But then there's those Eurovision entries that fly high on anticipation, only to crash and burn on arrival, and Cyprus's 1999 entry is the stuff of legend. Eurovision fans were all over this song in the lead up to the competition. A fan poll run by the Eurovision fan site, myledbury.co.uk, put Cyprus in first place with 22% of the vote. Betting odds from shortly before the final placed the song at 12-1 odds to win. But then, the big night came, the voting sequence passed, and Cyprus ended up in second last place, only scoring 2 points from the United Kingdom. Their previous successes, including a 5th place in 1997, ensured they weren't left out the following year, but it would still prove a massive blow to recover from. Remember when people got all conspiratorial over Loreen winning again in 2023, being like, the hosts counted the number of wins of each country at the start of the show, and the margin of the juries was too big, and Graham congratulated Loreen for bringing Eurovision to Sweden on ABBA's 50th anniversary. It was clearly all planned. Yeah, some payoff that was. But don't forget, 1999 was the year of ABBA. It was the 25th anniversary of their Eurovision victory at Waterloo, and the ABBA jukebox musical, Mamma Mia, debuted on the West End. And this was all topped off with Sweden claiming a 4th victory at Eurovision with Charlotte Nilsson, paying clear tribute to the forefathers of her country's music industry. And doesn't that all seem a bit convenient? Sometimes things don't happen for a reason. Portugal almost didn't make it to Eurovision in 1999. They were set to be in the relegation zone in order for Latvia to make its debut in the contest, but Latvia ended up backing out, allowing Hungary to keep their place in the competition. But Hungary decided to back out too, and the final spot in Eurovision 1999 went to Portugal instead. Portugal would later repay this debt when they chose to withdraw from Eurovision 2002, allowing Latvia to escape the relegation zone and go on to win the contest. Portugal had been a perpetual underdog at Eurovision, but they managed a few decent results in the 90s, and so far had dodged any forced withdrawals, but it wasn't to last. They finished in 21st place with only a set of 12 points, a feat first achieved by Greece the previous year. And just like Greece, Portugal found themselves in the relegation zone for the first and only time.
My name's Holly Jervis.
Don't be stingy, I'm a growing girl.
It was absolutely terrible.
Well, what would you say to the people that employ me now?
Who are they?
Don't you go on your own. Don't leave me here alone. 'Cause I'll be there. Yes, I swear.
Austria sent Reflection by 18-year-old Bobby Singer, real name Tina Schosse. Not the most high-profile pop song, but solid enough to incentivize viewers to pick up the phone. Austria achieved their first top 10 finish in 7 years, and they joined their fellow A-team comrades, Denmark and Iceland, in escaping relegation.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
After the victory of Dawn International in 1998, the Eurovision Song Contest was brought to Jerusalem for the second time. West Jerusalem, that is, the unofficially occupied half of the city. Dawn International's victory was instrumental in portraying Israel as a progressive and forward-thinking place, though, ironically, her participation pissed off way more people within Israel than it did in any yucky Arab countries. Naturally, Israel moved on to the next step in gaining approval from Western liberals, showing their love for the black people. The host sent four-piece band Aiden, which included Eddie and Gabriel Butler. These brothers were born in Israel to African-American parents who were part of the Black Israelites. This movement holds the belief that African Americans are the true descendants of the ancient Israelites, But Israel does not recognise their right of return, and no black Israelite was granted Israeli citizenship until 2009. Eddie Butler returned to the contest in 2006, where he finished second last. It is unknown if he ever acquired Israeli citizenship, but according to this one random comment I found on poo-poo blogs, he now lives in either Croatia or Russia and has acquired the citizenship of his adopted country. Malta was on a roll in Eurovision. Ever since their return to the contest in 1991, they'd managed a streak of 8 top 10 positions in a row, which they may or may not have achieved with the help of shady vote exchanges. After just missing out on a victory in 1998's nail-biting voting sequence, Malta was more than ready to taste victory than ever. But in 1999, they did not come close. They finished in 15th place, bringing an end to their streak. But they remained miles away from any relegation. Germany's entry featured lyrics in 4 different languages, more than any other country that year, showing that no one was in a rush to be the next Bendik singers. The name of the song was Journey to Jerusalem, which is a play on words. Obviously they're referring to the trip they made from Germany to Jerusalem, but it's also the German term for the kids' game, musical chairs. Germans looked at this and thought, oh yes, this is just like Zionism. I don't disagree. People often say that Germans have no sense of humour, but this song features some very funny lyrics like we walk hand in hand to a peaceful land, and peace is more than just a game where only one can win. Things that no one should take seriously. The 90s have been a disastrous decade for Germany in Eurovision, but they got to finish on a high note, scoring 3rd place with 140 points. Now we get to the 4th and final member of the A-team, Bosnia and Herzegovina. They were represented by Dino and Beatrice, who were second in the national selection but were drafted in after Bosnia's future personal best, Hadi Matahadi, got disqualified for sending a song that had already been released 2 years earlier. Bosnia had had a pretty modest Eurovision career up to that point. No massive disasters, but always in the bottom half of the rankings, so it should have been good news that the duo pulled off a 7th place with 86 points, but this is where the nastiness of the relegation system really sets in. Even with a top 10 finish, Bosnia's average over 5 editions sat at 33.75 points, nowhere close to the 47.5 needed to make it to Eurovision 2000. In fact, in order to prevent withdrawal, Bosnia-Herzegovina would have needed 141 points, more than 3rd place Germany. Fortunately, by the time Bosnia returned to the contest in 2001, Eurovision had abandoned the average point system and gone back to kicking out the lowest scores of each edition, as they had done before 1996, which helped even out the playing field a bit, but ultimately, depriving nations of a year of Eurovision was never going to be sustainable. Last, but certainly not least, is Estonia. Estonia's run in Eurovision up to this point had been short but successful, proving themselves a contender against the more established players of the contest. As I mentioned earlier, Iceland 1997 is considered a song that was sent to Eurovision a year too early, but I believe this is an entry that was sent a year too late. This song continued the trend of ethnic ballads that dominated Eurovision in the 1990s. Nocturne, The Voice, Den Vilda. This is a song that was meant to be performed in Estonian with a live orchestra. Yet, here it stands, a sign of how Eurovision was changing at breakneck speed. That's not to say it was a failure, of course. It scored 90 points and came in 6th place. But one can't help but imagine what could have been.